Then let's start with a topic we continue basically from what we had been talking about before, namely money. And of course, money is, in a way, when we talk about economics, somewhat the most prevalent issue, because when we think about economic question, when we think about economics, it's always, yes, of course, there is money involved. There is more or less nothing going on, seemingly, in economics, when we take it from our daily perspective, without money. Now, and money, we talked about it, money is a very simple thing, we think. Meaning it is what we have in the pocket, in the wallet, or what we don't have there, but we would like to have or we need. And or it is what we have in the bank account, again, what we have there or what we don't have, and what has these different functions of being portable, being divisible, and so on and so forth. So we talked about this. This is what we see. And then we said money is as well something that is guaranteed, fiat money, that is guaranteed by some instance where we can actually figure out how much or what the value of money is. 100 yuan, value 100. And there we start actually to be wrong, because money as such doesn't have any value. Can you eat money? Usually not. Can you sleep on money? If you have plenty of it, you can, but it's actually not advisable, it's not comfortable. Can you drive with money? No. You can buy, you can pay somebody to drive you. You can buy an instrument, a vehicle, to drive it yourself. But as such, money doesn't have any value. This is an important point, because the value money has, the only value, if you want to use this term, money has, is being a representation of something. This is an important point. It's guaranteed by some instance. And it is important to figure out how this process of guaranteeing actually takes place, today's session. And it is about representing a real value, meaning what we can, representing something with that we can do something concrete, use value. As I said, usually we think about money, we know what it is in our purse or not. And then economists, being so bored, have to think about making things complicated. Well, it's not this really, but they say money is not really this piece, the coin, the piece of paper we have in the pocket or in the bank. But there are actually three different kinds of money. Three different monetary aggregates. And these are distinct, these are different from each other in terms of defining together, with a relationship between them, the money supply. You have the definitions there, you will get them into detail. You can go, I guess, to any central bank and find these definitions. These are literally taken from the European Central Bank, because I know the website there. I would have found it as well on the Chinese site. It's probably a different problem with language there. I would have been able to go to the Federal Reserve in the United States. This is the general definition of M1, M2, and M3, meaning narrow money, which you may say is exactly this. What you have there, the piece of paper, guaranteed by something, somebody, some institution. It's not if I write it down on a piece of paper, but it is written down by a certain institution that has the authority to guarantee this representation. M2 is, includes M1, meaning the money that is immediately available, and is more, namely, it is that money that is not immediately available, but where we, if you go through the definition, where we need some time beforehand to say, I want to have this money. So it is there, but it is not immediately available. Then we have M3, where you can say in one way or another, it is not there immediately, it is not available. It is a kind of reserve. It's backing the real money, it's backing M1 and 2. We always can fall back on this. Now this is M3 as a monetary aggregate, and we have had in history at least two systems where it was easier to understand the mechanism, not the M3, but the mechanism behind it. The one you all heard at least about it was the gold standard. It was literally backed by gold, and you could fall back on this real thing of gold, saying this is there. I think I showed you this little video clip of the Queen going through the Bank of England, through the little cellar there, and looking at the gold. So in a way, this was the idea. You can immediately exchange money into gold. Don't do this. Well, the one thing is the gold standard doesn't exist anymore. The French did it. They're coming to the next point. That's what they did. This was the pegged system, meaning Bretton Woods. It was not the gold standard, but it was a pegged system, meaning the US dollar, North American dollar, was following the gold standard. And they said, the money we have, the US dollar, globally in circulation, are backed by gold, meaning by this real thing of gold. With your individual currencies, the Deutschmark, the French franc, the Irish pound, or the British pound, is linked to the dollar, and in this way indirectly linked to the gold standard. Because there is a currency rate fixed, defined, and defining in this way the gold standard. Now comes, never ask, I want to see the gold behind it. This is what the French did at some stage. They said, we want the gold. And then the states said, we don't have it. Oh, this was a little bit awkward and meant that this entire system crashed. Now, of course, things had been more complex, but this is exactly where, on the one hand, fiat means trust the system, be confident. It is the value defined by the central bank. They have everything under control. But if they really have is another question, not least because the entire system is, of course, linked to the real economy. Even if it's not the gold standard, which is something real, tangible, it is linked to the real economy. What is going on in the entire economy, globally, has to be linked to what the central banks do with their policies. Oversight, meaning M1, M2, M3, and the relationship between them is controlled, is overlooked by the central bank. There is always a dispute, and had been always a dispute about the independence of the central bank. It's of course a political body, but it should not follow any political interests in terms of elections. In terms of a short-term interest, we want to influence in favor of a political decision the economic process. So get a growth in which way ever, lower the interest rate before the elections. Everybody will say, okay, this is really great. This government, we will re-elect them because they are good for us, they lower the interest rate. This was the idea of independence. Of course, it's problematic to say it's independent because there is no neutral, politically neutral decision that can be taken as economic decisions. It's always linked to political processes. It is always, do you want to go, we come back to this, do you want to go for employment, do you want to go for stability or whatsoever. So these are political interests, but this is the question that in which way ever central bank decides, central bank has this overview, oversight, and it means as well that they balance M1, M2, M3 in terms of how much security do we have, do we want, do we need, in order to just have a stable long-term development, or how much risk do we take moving out from M3 to M2, M1? How much money do we move there, taking the risk of not having the reserves, but achieving something we politically want? Politically means in terms of economic development. Now, the central bank, or the central banks as national bodies, are increasingly looking for regional links, for cooperation. Nearest to us is the BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. They have the development bank, and they say we pool resources, but as well we pool policy resources, we pool decisions, decide together on what we want to do. You find the same in other areas, most pronouncedly the European Central Bank, having actually quite a lot of power, meaning taking a lot of power from the national central banks away. As I said, these are political bodies, meaning even if it is about economic decisions, of course, and we as economists, we always say we know what is good, and we know in neutral terms, in academic and scientific terms, what it is about. These are political decisions we are looking at. It's employment maximization. This is a political goal, economic goal, that we need employment, and that means increase the participation rate and increase the people who are actively in employment. Participation rate includes those who are unemployed, but we want as many people as possible into work and into employment. price stability, and a moderate interest rate. Don't go to any extremes. You should not go to an interest rate of 0.001%, and don't go for an interest rate of 20 or 30%. Moderate interest rate and price stability is, of course, something where we know prices are changing, and we know it's about overall prices. It's not individual prices in one shop or another for one product or another. The overall price should be moderately changing. There should not be a major inflation, and there should not be a major deflation. These are objectives, and at the same time, these are instruments. I can use the interest rate, I can influence the interest rate, and use it as a means to increase employment. So there is an interlink between them, and this is what we have to find out, where we have to think about it. There are some terms simply you should know, you should learn. Reserves, I mentioned, I used this term already. It is an obligation, not strictly defined, meaning there are differences from country to country. There are differences as well when it comes to the central bank and the individual banks. They should have, or they have to have, a reserve. It never happens that everybody who has an account with this bank, A, goes to the bank and says, I want the money now. But it should be possible that a large number of the customers actually comes and says, I want my money. I have in my saving accounts, I have in my current accounts, 10,000, 1 billion, I don't know what. And then the bank should be able to say, okay, these are my customers, and these are coming. I won't be able to pay to everybody, but I will be able to pay to this relatively small amount of people. If the reserve is too low, you see what happens, or you saw what happens in 2007, I think, or 2007, when the Lehman Brothers crashed. And then you see the subjective factor again. Lehman Brothers crashed. People went there and said, I want the money. Lehman Brothers said, sorry, we don't have it. And then people from other banks said, oh, they don't have it. Who guarantees that my bank has it? They went there, got the money, and the banks at some stage said, sorry, we don't have it. Reserves had been too low. Fractional reserve banking system means exactly this. There is some money that has to be kept as security, and this is linked, always linked to the central bank. It's not only the individual bank having this reserve, but as well it is linked to the central bank, and there you see the meaning of M2 and M3. And then they have it's simply a calculation, the reserve ratio as a fraction, how much is it actually that a bank keeps as reserve. Money, the three functions of money. It is important to keep this in mind, what I said before. Money as such does not have value, but it is used as a measure of value. It's simply a figure, a guaranteed, in inverted commas, a guaranteed figure that allows us to measure value of other things. It's a means of circulation. Meaning, if you have money, you can go to the shop and say, I want to buy this and that good. And it allows you to exchange, to give the money away and get a product. Exchange. And exchange means, in this instance, circulation. The other thing is then the store of value. And then, of course, you come to this kind of paradox, or the language not being precise. How can something that doesn't have value store value? But this is what we say. It stores value. It is a means that we can say, actually, we don't have goods, but we have this money, put it into bank, put it under the pillowcase, and it is there forever and stores this value. Measure of value, it is one standard applied, meaning it's the same standard. In this way, measure. It's not that you decide yourself the value of something, but of money, but it is the standard set, and I mentioned this fiat dimension, but it is as well going beyond this. It's a general agreement within a certain period of time and within a country. The means of circulation, and this is important to keep this in mind. There are two aspects to it. The one is you have a commodity. You have a commodity, something like a watch, like a pen, like a book. You sell it, meaning this is a metamorphosis. It's a change. You don't have the book anymore, but you have money. And the second metamorphosis is money to commodity, meaning you are not interested in having money as such, because it doesn't have value. You are interested in doing something with the money, meaning to buy another commodity. Currency from running. The currency, the money, or the commodity, let's start with that, is always in the hands of the seller, the person who wants to sell something and wants to have money, receive money, and then the other way around, the money is always in the hands of the buyer. Because you need to have money to buy something. The store of value, as I just said, its value is relative stable. It's guaranteed at least within a certain area, space, and over a certain time. This would be so easy and too easy so that we have to look at something else to make life difficult, or at least to see the difficulty of life. I.e., even if we said and emphasized, rightly so, that there is this stability, there is a certain representation, there is a certain guarantee and security, we all know we go to the shop, buy something, we go next year, we buy something and say, oh, it's more expensive. Usually what happens, inflation, in general terms, things are getting more expensive. And in general terms I'm not talking about individual products, but I'm talking again about the overall price rate. We have two. Money is getting more expensive. Or, and this is what concerns us usually, it is price inflation, meaning it's this general increase of the price of goods. We mentioned this strange basket to measure actually what the average family, what the average person, sometimes it's more differentiated, what the average person, family in an urban area or in a rural area needs. This is literally considered to be a basket and where different products are put into this. It's a book, it's 10 stamps, it's a computer, it's so much energy, it's for hygiene, it's for medical purposes, different things. This is what we need. The calculation of it is usually something some people, more or less wise people, sit down and think, this is actually what people need, and then they look at the statistics and look at other issues and create this basket. If you have an increase, meaning if you have inflation, it means at the same time, considering or assuming that you do not have more income, nor you do not have more money available, basically the purchasing power decreases. You have the same amount of money, the goods you have to buy in terms of this basket are getting altogether more expensive, which means you can buy less products. Which is not good, in general. Now, we like calculations usually, so we say inflation is a relative term, meaning it relates the prices at stage 1 to the prices of stage 2. Otherwise, there is no inflation. Inflation is something of a process. Today there is no inflation. Today's inflation is the relation of prices today to the prices of yesterday. So we have different reference points there. Usually it's 1 year, the annual inflation rate. And then we say the 1 year is the base year. It can be last year, annual inflation rate, or it can be the base year of 1916. You would have the inflation rate over 100 years. You can calculate this. And it's simple as that. B minus A divided by B multiplied by 100. Those who like formulas can refer to this, and those who don't like formulas can still refer to it. You basically at some stage you will learn it, you know it by heart. Of course, this seems to be much more attractive, deflation. Again, monetary and price deflation. In simplified terms, things are getting cheaper. Hooray. We do not pay as much as we paid before. Things are getting cheaper. We still have the same amount of money, of income, of assets, and we can use this now to buy more products, increasing the purchase power. We can buy more products because in relative terms they are getting cheaper. It seems to be at least very attractive. Again, the calculation there, it's basically the same calculation as we know from before. Now we have to do what we did already with the GDP. Of course, we have this nominal and real, the difference between nominal and real. In terms of GDP, we said the nominal is the price we pay, and the real GDP is the price we would refer using this base year. So we have the same when it comes to the adjustment in terms of inflation. We have the nominal quantity. This is literally the basket. This is all products, services, whatsoever in the basket. And mind, it's only the basket from the market. Whatever you get in a different way from other sources is not relevant here. And then you have the other dimension, which is the real quality, meaning it's not what is in the basket, but what you can actually get. What you would get if you take the base year, if you take the change over time into account. So this is important to keep in mind, that again we have this difference between nominal and real quantities. It is, of course, important if you think about what you can do with your money. Because you are not interested in abstract values, but you are interested in what do you get if you go to the shop. When it comes to inflation, it is important, it just comes to my mind because sometimes you see, or at least I saw it in some supermarkets, you have a kind of strange advertisement. They have actually a basket there, a trolley, and they put the goods into it. Sometimes it's not legal, in some countries it is legal. You have the one trolley, this is what you get in our shop. And then they have a second trolley with less, with a smaller amount of goods. And then they say, this is if you go with the same money to the competitor. So you have literally this, and this is of course what we are interested in. We are interested in getting the larger basket for the same amount of money. But at the same time, this is not what we are interested in. This is the individual, this is the micro level. We are interested in the larger picture, meaning what happens in the overall economy, where we take together shop A, B, C, D, and as well where we take together the different sectors of the economy. If it's agricultural goods, if it's raw material, if it's commodities, if it's refined goods like sugar, for instance, the sugar cane is a different thing than the sugar you have in the little sachets or whatsoever. So then we go to the conversion. It is again a simple calculation, the nominal quantity, and then we look at the price index, which we calculated. Price index defined as the average price for a given set of goods and services. This is the overall setting, and of course, coming back to what I said before, this is influenced, but before means at the beginning, this is influenced in different ways by the money that is available in a society. It's not what you have in your wallet, what you have in your bank account. It is not the money that is individually available, but it is this shift, the availability of money in the overall economy. And this is difficult to understand, difficult to imagine, but at the same time necessary to imagine. What we are talking about is, in a way, the fact that M3 is not available. Of course, in the overall calculation, M3 is available. It is the money that is in this economy functioning. But at the same time, it is not available that you cannot simply go to the bank and say, I want money, but not from my account, not from my saving account, but from M3. I know you have it. Try to go to the central bank. They will say, actually, we don't have it. I don't know what they would actually say, but they cannot work with this on this permanent basis. We will come back later to this, that they can say, and this is then important for this context, they can say at some stage, we shift money from M3 to M2 and M1, and in this way we have more money available. Meaning it's more money in the circulation. And this is what they usually do, and this is what we will talk about next time. And it is important, next time means not the second part of this. This is important to understand the overall setting of this economic process. And as far as I understand, we have a break now.